Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started now. Thank you all for coming to the Press Club today. I'm Linda Benedict. I'm the Secretary of the Press Club, and it's my pleasure today to introduce our speaker. But first, I need to remind you to silence your cell phones and that only members of the Press Club and members of the media can ask questions of our speaker at the end of our program. Our speaker today is Senator Mike Reese, a Republican who has represented Louisiana's 30th district, covering much of the state's western border with Texas, since 2020. Senator Reese is a native of Vernon Parish and has a BS in finance from the University of Louisiana at Monroe. He's a business leader in his community, involved with a number of business operations focusing on logistics, warehousing, and commercial real estate in Vernon, Beauregard, and Calcasieu parishes. Senator Reese is the co-chair of the very important and critical Louisiana Water Sector Commission, and that's his topic for today's presentation. So please welcome Senator Mike Reese.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to say before I get started that everything I say today is going to be off the record. Has somebody used that joke probably before? Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me today to speak with you about a topic that I don't know has really gotten enough attention when you consider the impact it's had around the entirety of our state and how important it is to the citizens of our state. So I really welcome the opportunity today to share with you an update on the success we've had so far with the Water Sector Commission. And I'll be brief in my presentation and leave it open for an opportunity to visit with you about questions that you may have about the program too. The Water Sector Program was established by Act 410 of the 2021 regular session. We knew that the state was going to be receiving several $1 billion of American Rescue Plan investment. And with our state suffering greatly by crippled water and sewer systems and one of the limited uses of ARP dollars applying to water and sewer systems, we decided to establish a program to not only tackle infrastructure needs now, but to require responsible management of the systems going forward. We felt like time was of the essence. We knew the local governments were also receiving ARP dollars, American Rescue Plan dollars, and we wanted to create an opportunity to leverage both sources of funding for maximum benefit. A quickly implemented program would require flexibility, and so instead of establishing rules to be rigidly enforced by the executive branch back in 2021 when we were making this choice, we established a 10-member commission to oversee the program that would be established by members of the House and members of the Senate. We knew that systems, when given this opportunity to make quick decisions about what they would apply for, might have situations where they would apply for what was their most urgent need at the time, only to find out later something else springs up that would be a more urgent need, and we would need that flexibility to help them treat it. The Office of Community Development provided the management of the program, and the Louisiana Department of Health and the Department of Environmental Quality provided the expertise we needed to score project applications. And prior to this program coming up, there are a few grant programs out there and revolving loan programs out there, but the only other way that you got state resources is really the capital outlay program. And the capital outlay program, although I believe that the projects I've been involved with had great merit, is not a merit-based program. The capital outlay program is more of a political program, so to speak. And so we really wanted to have something that scored projects, that created an opportunity for the systems in most need to have the best opportunity for funding. And together with Act 660 of 2022, we further modified the program to make sure we were giving systems of various sizes a fair opportunity to compete against other similarly situated operators. And so we created subcategories for small, medium, and large systems based on their size. So when we first applied the money, we of course had it split between water and sewer. I think at the time it was about 70-30, 70% water, 30% sewer. And then within those categories, we split the money nearly evenly amongst small-sized systems, medium-sized systems, and large-sized systems, because their capacity for match dollars, their capacity to design programs, their capacity to really compete in grant proposals are all different. And so we really wanted to give them some similar footing as they competed for dollars. Between 2021 and 2022, we appropriated $750 million of our state's allocation of emergency American Rescue Plan funding to our grant program, with a federal requirement that the funds be obligated by December of 2024 and fully spent by December of 2026. We also added another $50 million in state funds to grow the funding in the program. The program allowed projects that made improvements to enable systems to comply with clean drinking water regulations, infrastructure capital improvements, including the replacement of failing water and sewer treatment and distribution systems, the consolidation of existing systems, which I think was an important feature, and to improve the resilience of infrastructure to severe weather events. We prohibited applications from systems that were just seeking to expand for economic development opportunities in order to address more severe needs. We really had such a crisis in our state, and continue to have one, that really deals with the delivery of clean drinking water, that we just did not want to divide the limited resources further by allowing expansion of systems that probably have some other funding sources if they're experiencing system expansion. In order to make an even larger impact, we required a minimum 25% match unless a system requested a waiver based on what we've already established in the capital outlay system for waiver opportunities, which is really limited to a small number of connections that you may have in your system to allow for that. We also allowed for additional points if your match was greater than 25%. We did that because we knew so many systems had their own American Rescue Plan dollars, or their parish did, or their municipality did, and they would have and we allowed the use of those dollars as match funds in this program. So we really wanted to encourage them to dedicate a large portion of their funds to this program. As a result, we had systems propose matches that were greater than 100% in some cases. We limited grants to $5 million in the first round unless the application included consolidation, and you could get up to 6 consolidations with a maximum of $5 million per system. As a result of that incentive, Phase 1 in our program included 69 consolidations, and Phase 2, out of 18 projects awarded, included 13 consolidations. And so I think this was very, very important as we're seeking to find efficiency in the way that we run these kind of municipal systems around our state and deliver these services, that as our state has grown and a lot of the rural areas had to develop small water systems and smaller sewer systems, and now they've been overtaken by growth in other areas, and it just makes perfect sense as you try to manage those things that you're not duplicating all of the administration of it. You're not duplicating all of the labor force that it takes to maintain them. And so we've really been pleased to see the number of systems being willing to use these funds to exercise a plan for consolidation. And then one of the most important features that we implemented as well was the requirement that each system perform a rate study and adopt that rate study. In some systems around Louisiana, they were delivering water and sewer for below what it cost them to provide it. And so that was going to always be an impending problem in the future, right, is that they were ultimately going to have some sort of capital need in the future that they were going to be under-resourced to address. And when that occurred, there's really no other backstop in the state of Louisiana other than to come to state government once there's been a failure that they can no longer provide for at their system level. And so I found that this, although this has been a little bit of a problem with some of the systems, as they hated to really undertake a rate increase in some cases, it was the most responsible way going forward, that we'll help you with these dollars to fix your most immediate and severe needs. You'll have to help in the future by making sure that you have a funding system in place, a funding model that places money in reserve for future capital improvements and capital replacement. In the first round of grants, we awarded $747 million in projects. We do have some remaining funds that we've allowed to reserve to cover unexpected cost overruns, like inflation and those sorts of issues. And we funded 274 projects out of nearly $2 billion in requests in that initial round. And, you know, it's like the very definition of inflation was occurring at the time. The federal government was coming in after COVID. They were putting these dollars out to every state in the union, and they all had a limited use for those dollars to every state in the union, part of which was water and sewer. So at the time, we were trying to get our program off the ground first, and I believe we were the first in the country to actually get a system of grant in place that our systems could apply for. But at the same time, they started ordering valves and pipe and all the other components of the water and sewer system. Every other state in the union was doing the same thing, and so that drove up the cost and drove up the inflation, and we got a little less work done because of that. In phase two, we have recently, just a month ago, awarded $72 million in new funds to 18 systems, leveraging matching funds of $89 million in total. And so together, $89 million plus our $72 million in state funds that we allocated to that round. So we're really being able to leverage our state tax dollars, and these are state general fund dollars now that we're working with, to really get a lot more work done through the matching process. Out of the $72 million that we awarded in this round, we had applications in excess of $400 million. And then our commission continues to meet at this time nearly on a monthly basis to continue to provide the kind of flexibility that we designed the commission to be able to provide. We constantly, every month, we have systems that may have reached a point in the design process. They realize their program is no longer feasible to move forward, so they're coming back to the commission and returning those funds to us. And we have systems that have gone out for bid and maybe only got one bidder or only got two bidders, and the cost has been significantly more than what they had anticipated and budgeted for back when they created the budget, which was in 2021 or 2022, ahead of the significant amount of inflation that we've seen kind of across our country. And so we wanted to be able to provide a relief valve where your only other alternative would be, cancel the grant and you can't move forward, or provide some flexibility that I think our commission provides to be able to say, what kind of value engineering have you done? Let's try to get this project done. Let's take away anything that wasn't critically necessary to addressing your severe issue of delivering clean drinking water. And so in many cases, they've had to remove maybe a building that was going to be there that was important but not vital to the pumps and the treatment system, right? And so we've forced them to have to really value engineer their projects, but then we've been able to provide some additional resources so we ultimately get the project done and we're not going back to square one. And then in this last session as well, we put $5 million aside in an emergency fund as well. And that $5 million, and I hope this is a program that kind of continues forward, this is specifically targeted for systems that have been taken over in receivership. So if a system is just really desolate at that point, they have really severe issues, they can't be addressed, they don't have the resources to address them, we have issues where you don't have clean drinking water, or you have environmental issues with sewer flow, then we have a system that if you are taken into receivership, that receiver has the ability to come to the Water Sector Commission and seek some emergency dollars to put in the repair of the system to try to stand it back up. And to date, we've really not had a program like that in Louisiana, although we do occasionally have systems that find themselves in that position. And rather than just put a Band-Aid on a system that really has reached that point, it's our goal to try to get it into receivership, create some better financial management of the system, fix their most severe need, and then that system may revert back to the management of that that had it before, or it may become a consolidated partner with somebody else. So that's the work that we've done in the Water Sector Commission. I'm immensely proud of the work that Chairman Zarang from the House has done as well, and our other water sector members. We get really deep in the weeds on individual systems' needs and individual systems' choices about what they've decided to fix, especially when it comes time to grant them additional dollars for cost overruns. But to date, having more than nearly 300 grant proposals that we've approved in Louisiana, and they've touched every corner of our state. I applaud my colleagues because in the first round, we really wanted to show that we had distribution geographically around the state. We had some regions that had had more projects that scored well and could have received money, And we had some colleagues that really did a good job of just saying, you know what, we have some of our most severe needs are taken care of. We have some grants in our region, but maybe the Northeast region didn't really not get addressed well enough, and we were able to shift some dollars around to make sure we're making that investment statewide. So I really appreciate the unselfish nature in which a lot of our colleagues operated to make sure we deployed these resources and this opportunity statewide, which I believe is what's given our colleagues the desire to place more money in this program and keep it going with the most recent use of $70 million. And I think that when we come into this next legislative session, our goal will be to put enough money in to continue awarding grants out of this most recent grant round and most recent application. So that's what we've done with the program. Thank you for letting me come and join you today and share with you what I believe is a great success for our state, and also a pathway going forward that we'll be able to address more of this concern, making more systems both work properly but be financially solvent enough to carry forward on their own. And with that, I'm happy to take questions. Yes, sir.
I noticed that there is a bill in the legislature to do away with fluoridation in the water systems. Does this have any effect on your program? Is there funding available for those systems that want to do it?
So our program presently does not contemplate that. As I've spoken to folks from LDH, I mean, there are systems that, I guess, introduce fluoride into the system, and there's also water systems that have naturally occurring fluoride in their water supply. But presently, when we're scoring the severity of a system, because there's no rule or national standard that they have to meet, they're really not in violation of anything, and so that's currently not contemplated in our program. Yes, sir.
Are commissioners paid, and secondly, in terms of water standards, have they increased and therefore make the necessity for improvements more difficult to meet those newer standards?
So first of all, our commission is made up of 5 members of the Senate and 5 members of the House. So already on the state's payroll, so to speak. And represent a large region of our state as well. And then the second question,
About water standards.
water standards. And so a couple of years ago we passed some legislation to start putting letter grades on systems. And I think that created some more stringent standards on what it takes to achieve an A, B, or C, and the consequences of falling into the D or F category, that it may make you susceptible to being taken over in receivership. And so I think there are more dire consequences now if you're not meeting the standard, and there's a better accounting of the systems that are. Yes, ma'am?
Could you tell us maybe one of the more significant systems that changed from being at a very poor level to a higher level, and what that might have entailed?
I don't know that I could point to, I think, so many around the state that were just at a absolute implosion point, and I think they were in every region. And I think that was what was most eye-opening to me, is that it wasn't a problem that was unique to just, maybe say one rural region of Louisiana. I mean, it existed in areas in the suburbs of Baton Rouge, for instance. We have some folks that joined us here today that are working with the Tallulah water system, and it was really at a point where it was just like they weren't going to be able to provide water any longer if we didn't get this accomplished, and we're still trying to get it there. They have some resources now through our program that are available, and some people that are working with them to come in and get their system straightened out. But they were really everywhere. That systems were one pump breakdown away from not being able to provide water, and one pump breakdown away from having to, in Natchitoches Parish, there's a school that only that is one pump breakdown away from having to close the school down because they have no other alternative water supplies. And now they have the resources with our most recent grant round to connect with some other adjoining systems and create not only some backup to their water system, but to create a clean drinking water environment for them as well. So it really is prolific throughout the state. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of dent have you made in the long list of projects, and how much is left to be done?
Well,
we're not in a good state with water.
No, and I think clearly there's some question there. I mean, in the first round of grant requests, those requests were greater than $2 billion. In our most recent round of requests, we had applications for a little over $400 million. Now, in our second round of requests, we limited that to systems that had not previously received money. So if you had previously received money in the program, you were ineligible to seek a grant in round two. But so I think that we, based on that response, I think that we are starting to narrow it down a little bit more. Now, you do have systems that received grant rounds in the first round that were able to address their most severe issue that still have some continuing needs. And so I think if we're able to do an additional round in the future and we open it up back up to all systems, you'll probably see that number, come up again. Yes, ma'am?
Is there any sort of mechanism in place to check that the work is actually being done, that the state is funding with these grants?
They do, and so the Office of Community Development has that responsibility as they, this is a reimbursement program. And so as they receive invoices, there's documentation from the engineers on the projects that go into this as well to make sure that all that work is getting done and certified. LDH continues to have a role as well as DEQ in that process. And so I think there's a significant amount of oversight when it comes to that. Yes, sir.
You talk about consolidation. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have some experience in North Louisiana. My impression was that a population of the state is leaving rural. And when you talk about consolidation, my mind jumps, are we talking Abbeville, Lafayette, Thibodaux, Morgan City? Are we talking St. Joseph and Tallulah? Could you speak to that a little bit? Because I think here in Baton Rouge, we don't see a reduction in population. So,
I've seen it happen in both. I mean, when it comes to sewer consolidation, for instance, in St. Tammany Parish, that was a parish that the population grew quickly, and it went out quickly and consumed lots of neighborhoods that had neighborhood-specific, water and neighborhood-specific sewer treatment plants. And now they have larger populations, and they're trying to do a large consolidation project of sewer there that's going to ultimately include 9 systems being consolidated together. And in Lake Charles, you have Lake Charles working together with some of their rural communities as well as the police jury to do some consolidation on water and sewer. And then, of course, in Acadiana, you have some examples of that as well, where they're attempting to go ahead and consolidate, where they've had individual treatment plants in St. Martinville, for instance, and water distribution, and now they're looking to join together with the surrounding partners. It just makes a lot more sense.
you're not finding a lot of political difficulties in that particular aspect?
We have had some, and we have had some that had to walk away that were awarded grants and ultimately couldn't execute all the agreements for consolidation. But I will tell you, that's been maybe 1, maybe 2 grants. It's such a rare opportunity to have this kind of money available to them that I think in most cases they've agreed that they know the best thing to do is get their system fixed. And they wouldn't want to be responsible for not getting it repaired just because they failed to be able to work together on the consolidation. Yes, sir.
I know one of the things Baton Rouge area water systems are worried about is saltwater intrusion in the future. Are y'all looking forward to money and projects that can help with really big problems like this? I mean, this is a problem that's going to take a huge project and a lot of money to fix. Are y'all able to help with that?
I think that as we get through the first couple of rounds of our grants where we were dealing with just really severe water quality issues, then I think as we contemplate the plan going forward, we may change the scoring criteria going forward based on today's real world problems. And I think that you speak to one that's very, very important. And certainly when you look at that saltwater intrusion up the Mississippi River, we have some communities down there that whose water issues a few years ago they wouldn't have considered severe. But now, because of the saltwater intrusion up the Mississippi River, now that seems to be happening almost annually, now they have a severe issue that they need to deal with. And so how do we change our scoring model, I think, going forward to make sure we're addressing it? It will need to change over time as we pivot away from what was severe issues when we started the program. Now, nearly $1 billion later, what are our issues of severity going forward that we could address? Yes, sir.
Follow up to saltwater intrusion. Does every system that is subject to saltwater intrusion have a backup?
I do not know that. I do not know that. Not sure what LDH requires of them. Yes, sir?
That 79 million from the general fund, as a politician, does that tell you that this system, this grant system and the committee that you're on has received an A grade, I would say, from your fellow politicians? Could you speak to that, how you got $79 million additional?
Yes, sir. And I will tell you that I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of in this process. We have absolutely refused to let politics take over the allocation of funds. I think that my colleagues see it as a system that relies upon the merit of applications, and we've not deviated from the merit of applications and their scoring. We haven't cherry-picked projects. We haven't gone in and looked for projects in people's particular districts. The scores are the scores. The merit of the project is the merit of the project, and that's how we've moved forward. And so I think that's how we've gained the trust of our colleagues in the legislature to say, you know what, I'm willing to see money go to that. I don't know if it's going to come back to my district or not, but I know wherever it goes, it's going to go based on the merit of an application, which may include my district, it may not, but they see that as a good use of their funds. And so I've really been proud, as you say, I mean, that's kind of the biggest, check to say, are we doing right, are we not doing right? Our colleagues, help and support in putting more dollars in the program is certainly testament to that. Yes, ma'am?
So if there's a source of pollution that might enter the picture and cause a municipal water facility to be displaced, do you all get, is there a mechanism to approach that industrial user or what have you to help defray the cost?
So I'm not aware of that in terms of of maybe forced participation by industrial user that may be causing the problem.
Source of pollution.
Yeah, I'm not. Our program doesn't really contemplate that, mainly because our program is you have to have a known problem. You have to have a window of time that you apply, for the fix of the program, a window of time that we fund it, the window of time that you implement it. And in those cases, a lot of times it's more of an emergency reaction from the state, which is our program doesn't necessarily contemplate. So I guess that's LDH and GOSEP and some of those sources that have to come to the table. Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to tell me where you've seen the most severity and what progress you've made on those areas?
Again, it's just kind of like we were visiting over here a moment ago. The severity in our systems has really been everywhere. I mean, if you look at the way our grants have been distributed, which was largely dependent upon their severity score, it's happened in every corner of our state. And we're nearly 300 grants in, nearly $1 billion in. Clearly, we have addressed some of that severity, but it's difficult to say it's isolated to a particular region because if you look at the map, which I always do when we do a round of grants to make sure we're getting good geographic distribution around the state. And it's just, there's not a corner of our state that's not fighting some battle to rehab their infrastructure for water and sewer.
We've been, over the past year to 2 years, we've been reporting bad water in Killian. It's been a constant battle for everyone in the town of Killian. Has that been addressed?
I'm not familiar with that specific issue. Yes, ma'am?
You've been talking about some things that have been addressed. Can you maybe talk about specific success stories, maybe across the state, if we can maybe share that? If you could think of one by chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of seeing it happen all over the state. It's difficult to pinpoint it down to say one particular system has been the most successful in this process. I mean, I see small systems that had $300,000 repairs, and I've seen systems that have been able to consolidate and spend $9 or $10 million. And again, they've been in every quarter of the state. I mean, I think that's been why our program has been successful, is that it wasn't isolated to one area. But again, and I'll be happy to share with you maybe some specific systems afterwards. But we've had a lot of success, and it's happened everywhere.
Okay, awesome. And then what would you say to our viewers at home that maybe still have concerns about their water systems?
Well, I mean, I think hopefully we're giving them some confidence that the state of Louisiana kind of hears that and understands that we were really dealing with a crisis. We're probably still dealing somewhat with a crisis, but we've addressed it with nearly $1 billion so far, with, I think, a commitment from the legislature to continue putting money in the program. And so I think that citizens ought to just recognize that the state is trying to be a partner. We're not trying to be a partner just with enough resources to fix an immediate need, but we're trying to be a partner to say consolidation may be best for you, where you create a more efficient system and try to drive down the cost for consumers. And we're also trying to create a program where that system that they get water from now is reserving more in capital resources to make their own future repairs so that they can have some reliability in their system in the future. Yes, sir?
How does our problem and expense compare to, for example, Mississippi or other, for example, North Carolina or Virginia?
How does our problem compare to theirs? Yeah, I don't know. I really have not dug deep to see how other states maybe use some of their American Rescue Plan dollars to invest in similar water and sewer grant programs.
Do you think that's important to compare?
Oh, no, it certainly is. And we've been, all of our attitude at this point has been, we know we have a crisis in Louisiana. We need to act very quickly. We need to put as much money out there as we possibly can. And we didn't have the convenience of looking to see how other states had done that, because we were the first ones to get that accomplished. And we knew that was most important for us, which is why we ultimately created this Water Sector Commission, so that if we got it wrong, if we needed to pivot and adjust as we started implementing and spending the dollars, we'd have the ability to do that in Louisiana. And now I think we have more maybe of the convenience of looking to see, as we go forward, how did other states perform as they deployed their dollars? How do we compare to that?
How do you do it in the future? Very important to know how other people, other states.
No, that's right. No, that's right.
Blindly do it by ourselves.
No, that's right. Yes, ma'am.
Originally, there's several water sewer sector projects in the capital outlay bill and all. How's that being handled now? I mean, I know there was debate at one point about water sector and then that
Well,
how do you handle it?
You can't just completely eliminate the water and sewer projects that are in the capital outlay bill, because in water sector, there are certain types of projects that aren't allowed for, right? So we don't allow applications for system growth, for instance, or for economic expansion. And certainly some of what you'll see now in the capital outlay will be water and sewer projects that are solely focused on economic expansion. Maybe it's for an industrial park, maybe it's for just population growth in an area. So I think there'll be a continued need for the capital outlay path for some processes, and leave ours more narrowly focused on the severity issues that we have in the state. Yes, ma'am?
Do you foresee, or I guess I should say, what problems do you foresee with this huge meta AI center that's going to be using so much water? And there may be more such centers being contemplated for Louisiana.
So that's really not been on our radar for the Water Sector Commission. Nobody has none of the systems in that area have applied for any resources under our program to address their industrial uses of water now in that area. And I think that it's so new at this point that maybe the systems surrounding there don't really understand necessarily what that interaction is going to be in the future. But to date, we've not addressed it in our commission.
But it probably will become.
It could be. It could be, as they all seek to try to support that industrial opportunity and then manage the water that they have available there. We'll go back to.
A little bit. How is East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, and Central Parish doing?
I didn't bring material with me specific to their grant applications. I know we have funded grants in all of those parishes. And those parishes tend to have more financial wherewithal to provide matching dollars, which certainly helps them then, achieve more points with that and score more points and draw down more funds from us. But we've had a lot of projects in this area. And so but I can't speak to specific applications there. Yes, sir.
Is it online?
Yes, sir, it is. Yeah, so the Office of Community Development has a portal that anybody can go to, and it's a Water Sector Commission tab on their website, and you can look at every application that was made. You can look at every application that was funded, how they got scored, and the dollars that went to their systems. Yes, sir.
For a while, or a long time ago, I know there was a Rural Water Association. Is that still in existence at this time? Do y'all work with them or any other trade associations?
We have worked with them. So Louisiana Rural Water has been a huge partner in this process. They have been a huge partner because they were well aware of some of the dire needs within some of these rural water systems. They were able to kind of walk them through the grant application process. And then when it came time to do the rate studies, which were a requirement of the program, Louisiana Rural Water has really taken on a lot of that work to provide the expertise and subcontracted with the state to go in and perform those rate studies with those systems to make sure that they had a proper budget going forward, aligned with the proper rate. And in many cases, we had systems that you either had to have already adopted that new rate plan that Louisiana Rural Water may have created for you, or you had to sign a waiver saying that you want to move forward with your process and you'll agree to implement whatever that study ultimately produces, which is what most of them have done in most cases.
Are you working with any other trade associations?
Any what?
Any trade associations?
Trade associations? No, I mean, clearly, every engineer in Louisiana that deals with water has had a voice in this process. And then Louisiana Rural Water probably is the most organized of those kind of related associations that we've worked with. Clearly, the Louisiana Municipal Association and the Police Jury Association has done a good job educating their members and helping their members know that there was a grant program available they could apply for and giving them some grant writing assistance. But I would say those are the majority of the associations we've dealt with.
There's also Alliance for Affordable Energy that just petitioned some of the data centers, each of them for anticipated water usage as well as power needs. So, and they're a really good organization as well that people can go to.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the spending deadline is 26. Do you anticipate there being money left on the table? You anticipate it all being spent?
It'll all be spent, no doubt, and then some. I mean, just the cost increases alone that we've seen in so many projects that have been outside their original budget is consuming dollars at a pretty fast clip. I think that we're at a little difficult stage now where we'll have to take a serious look at projects that were awarded dollars but that aren't yet going to construction, and really contemplate whether or not they have enough time to go to construction and expend all of those dollars before the end of 2026. And I think we have a few months, before we have to get really serious about that. But, in some cases that you're drilling a new water well and you have to purchase the land to do that. And maybe the first land, the test well didn't drill well. And maybe you've got to go negotiate with a landowner on another piece of property. And so some of those things really drag out for when you could actually even start construction. And we'll have to be very mindful of that. We also have some state general fund dollars that we put in the program now, so clearly we'll be focused on spending those federal dollars that would go away at the end of 2026 first, and try to preserve some of that state general fund money for programs that may end up getting close to that deadline.
Has there been any concern about this administration withholding any of those funds?
We haven't had a single situation where somebody has suggested we withhold resources in this grant program.
They're doing it in broadband
Yeah.
and other areas.
No, we've not held up any dollars in this program. I would say the only thing that gets close to that in this program is that we've had some systems that received grant dollars, but the system itself has maybe other financial issues, and we're trying to determine if their best path forward is to spend the grant dollars and stay established as a system, or whether they would be better off consolidating into another system, but still spending the grant dollars. So that's the closest thing we have to that. Yes, sir.
There's a saying that a hanging really tends to focus one's mind. You're real close to this particular subject. I know, and you mentioned Louisiana Municipal Association, you might have had a small revolving grant, et cetera. This funding, I think, came from the Biden administration.
Correct.
And you're spending it. if you were to talk to your fellow citizens, is this money worth it? You're a Republican, obviously.
Right. So I would say in the situation of Louisiana with such dire needs for clean drinking water, and the sewer problems that we had, we really welcomed that federal investment that came in. It came in at a good time. We had systems that needed it. We had a state legislature that was willing to create a process to quickly get it to them. I think I would still debate whether or not it benefits us greatly in the long term to have so much money come in from the federal government all at one time for this purpose, because the consequence of that is that it has caused real inflation. Even if you just narrow it down to the scope of this program, it caused real inflation that has caused us not to be able to get our dollars spread as far and to touch as many systems. And I think that's my one criticism of the way the Biden administration rolled that out, was that it was so massive, it was all at once, and it was nationwide. And I think that's really limited our ability to use the dollars as wisely as we would have had they come in over maybe a longer period of time.
So your criticism of the previous administration that was going to have a weekly plan for 4 years is that the Biden administration gave you the money quickly.
Yeah, which ultimately caused inflation that ultimately caused us not to be able to do as much with it. So somewhere there's a sweet spot, right, where maybe the resources would more match what the supply chain could provide, and you would ultimately get more done with the same amount of money, maybe over a period of time.
So are you saying you didn't need that much money?
Oh, you definitely needed it. The question is, do you need it all at once? And is it best to have it all at once, or is it best to have it over a period of time that would have better met what the supply chains could have provided for in our country, which would have kept maybe the prices more consistent or would have grown slower, and ultimately we'd have gotten more projects done over a period of time.
But that still means you didn't need the money that fast.
That's been part of the challenge, is having that much money come in that fast, but I think we did a really good, responsible job of deploying it after it got here.
Have you received all the money?
We have.
You have?
We have.
Okay, and there's no indication any of it's going to be taken back?
No, I think the only risk in any money going away at this point would be our failure to fully expend it by the end of 2026. But I believe that we're well ahead of that, and we're paying close attention to it, and we'll make sure that happens. Yes, ma'am.
Is carbon capture affecting any of these water systems?
Not presently, no, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You said these areas and whatnot are on a scale or a score for severity. How does that work?
Yeah, so in our grant program, we had scoring criteria that's all available on Office of Community Development's website. So we had a score for severity, and then there's criteria for what makes, how they evaluate an application to derive that score. But then second to that, and unrelated to our Water Sector Commission, LDH now has a letter grade system for water systems around the state, where they attempt to give the citizens a better understanding of the quality of the water within their systems. They put it on a traditional letter grade scale to help people understand what the quality of the water is in the system that they are members of.
Is there something really big that sticks out immediately that says this place is severe, we need to address it immediately?
No, I mean, I would have to look at the scores around the state. I haven't looked at the letter grades placed on systems around the state. All right. Thank you for letting me join you today. I certainly appreciate that. I'll be here if anybody had questions that didn't get answered, or you want to contact me later. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Reese. Our speaker next week will be from the City Park Golf Group, to preserve the City Park Golf Course, and his name is Brian Dubriel. So he'll be our speaker next week about the City Park Golf Course.